Let's be honest. There's nothing quite like the pain of being disrespected. It's not just the words people say, it's how they say them. It's the way someone glances at you with disdain, interrupts your thoughts like they don't matter, or laughs behind your back thinking you won't notice. Disrespect has a way of slowly eating away at your soul, not in one loud moment, but in a series of small, quiet stabs that make you question yourself. Have you ever walked away from a conversation, heart racing, wondering why someone treated you like you were invisible, why you didn't speak up, why it hurt so much? I've felt that too. I've smiled through it, nodded along. I've played the bigger person more times than I can count. And for what? Hoping they'd change, hoping they'd see my worth. The truth is, they never did. Not until I changed. Not until I stopped begging for respect and started commanding it. Not with arrogance, but with deep self-respect. This video is not about revenge or domination. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about standing tall, not because others treat you well, but because you know your value even when they don't. And it's about doing this through the timeless strength of Stoic wisdom, a philosophy that has empowered emperors, warriors, and ordinary people like us to face life with dignity and inner fire. So if you've ever been belittled, overlooked, dismissed, if you've stayed silent when you wanted to speak or shrunk yourself to make others comfortable, this video is for you. This is your invitation to rise, not in anger, but in calm, unshakable confidence. In the next 30 minutes, we're going deep. I'm going to walk you through 8 powerful Stoic strategies, plus extra insights you won't want to miss, designed to help you face disrespect head-on and walk away stronger. And by the end of this, you'll not only understand how to handle people who don't respect you, you'll become someone who no longer needs their respect to feel whole. Let's begin. 1. Set clear boundaries. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to treat you with less respect over time, no matter how kind or understanding you try to be? It's because people often don't respond to kindness alone. They respond to clarity. In the absence of clear boundaries, people assume. And too often, they assume they can get away with more than they should. The first and most important strategy in dealing with people who don't respect you is this: draw the line and hold it. This isn't about being confrontational or cold. It's about honoring yourself enough to say, this is where I stop accepting anything less than what I deserve. Because here's the truth. People will treat you the way you teach them to treat you. If you don't speak up when you're interrupted, talked down to, or ignored, they assume it's okay. If you let things slide too often, they assume there are no consequences. Silence in this case is permission. But I get it. Setting boundaries can feel terrifying. What if they think you're rude? What if they walk away? What if they don't like the new version of you? These questions haunted me for years. I thought I had to choose between being liked and being respected. But the turning point came when I realized being liked at the cost of your dignity isn't worth it. Respect doesn't always come from being agreeable. It comes from having a backbone. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, live your values. Don't just expect others to honor your worth. Show them how it's done by how you carry yourself. So how do you set boundaries in real life? Start with clarity and calmness. If someone constantly interrupts you, say, "I'd like to finish what I'm saying. Please let me speak before responding." If a colleague talks down to you, say, "I'm not okay with being spoken to that way. Let's have this conversation respectfully." These words might shake your voice the first time you say them, but I promise you, every time you stand up for yourself, your confidence grows. You begin to realize that you're not powerless, you were just quiet. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors. Doors you control, and you get to decide who walks through and how far they're allowed in. Some people won't like your boundaries, especially if they benefited from your lack of them. Let them be uncomfortable. You're not responsible for their reaction. You're responsible for your self-respect. When you draw that line, something incredible happens. You stop chasing validation. You stop bending over backward for people who don't even care. And you begin to attract different energy. People who see your strength and rise to meet it. Ask yourself, where in your life have you tolerated too much for too long? Where have you stayed silent when you should have spoken up? What's one boundary you can set today, not tomorrow, that will protect your peace? Because when you start setting boundaries, you're not just demanding respect from others, you're finally giving it to yourself. 2. Don't engage in power struggles. Have you ever felt like someone was baiting you? Like they were just waiting for you to snap, to lash out, to finally lose your cool so they could say, "See? I told you they're the problem." That's not a coincidence. People who constantly disrespect you, whether it's subtle digs, public shaming, or manipulation, often thrive on control. They feed on your reaction. They want the satisfaction of knowing they've rattled you, pulled you into their chaos, and lowered you to their level. But here's a truth that took me years to learn. Your power doesn't come from how loud you shout. It comes from how calm you stay. When someone disrespects you, the most unexpected and powerful move you can make is not to react. Why? Because in that moment, you shift the dynamic. You stop playing their game. Think about this. When a fire burns hot, what happens when you stop feeding it? It dies out. Emotional power struggles are the same. The moment you stop reacting with anger, defensiveness, or hurt, you take away their fuel. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. The Stoics had a deep understanding of this. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That means you're not just some helpless victim of someone's bad behavior. You are the gatekeeper of your emotional world. You decide whether their words reach your heart or bounce off your armor. But that kind of emotional self-control, it's not easy, especially when you're disrespected by someone close, a partner, a parent, a boss. Your instincts scream to fight back, to prove your point, to defend your honor. But here's the thing. When you respond with anger, you give them your peace. When you try to win the argument, you lose the inner battle. And most of the time, it's not even worth it. So how do you actually stay centered when someone is trying to push your buttons? You pause. You breathe. You remind yourself, this is not about me. This is about them. Then you respond, not react, with clarity and composure. A simple, calm sentence like, "I hear what you're saying, but I'm not going to argue," can completely disarm someone who's trying to provoke you. Sometimes, the best way to win is not to play the game at all. This doesn't mean you tolerate abuse. It means you don't allow someone else's behavior to hijack your inner world. You protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. And you know what happens when you stop giving people that reaction they crave? They lose their grip on you. You rise above their control. You become someone who cannot be shaken easily. And in today's chaotic world, that's a rare and priceless strength. So ask yourself, who in your life pulls you into these toxic power struggles? What would happen if instead of reacting, you simply stayed calm and walked away? Could it be that in doing less, you actually gain more? When you refuse to be pulled into someone else's chaos, you anchor yourself in self-respect. And that's where true power lives, not in noise, but in stillness. 3. Limit your exposure to them. Let me ask you something. If someone was poisoning your food just a little bit each day, would you keep eating it? Of course not. So why do we keep allowing people into our lives who slowly poison our peace, our energy, and our sense of self-worth? The hard truth is this. Some people are not just disrespectful, they're draining. You might think you're being polite, loyal, or just doing your best to keep the peace, but in reality, you're slowly losing pieces of yourself. Every conversation becomes a minefield. Every interaction, a test of your patience. Every time you're around them, you walk away feeling smaller, more exhausted, and less sure of who you are. This is where the Stoic mindset becomes crucial. The Stoics believed in guarding the soul, not with walls, but with wisdom. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach." In other words, your environment isn't just where you live, it's what you become. And the people you surround yourself with are shaping your thoughts, your habits, your emotions, whether you realize it or not. Now, I get it. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of cutting people off entirely. Maybe it's a boss, a coworker, or even a family member you live with. But even if you can't remove them completely, you can limit their influence. You can stop over-engaging. You can stop giving them emotional real estate. You can create space, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. How do you do that? Start by setting firm boundaries around your time. Don't pick up every call. Don't answer every message. Don't feel obligated to attend every gathering if you know it will leave you drained. Give yourself permission to say no. You are not responsible for their feelings. You are responsible for your well-being. Create a buffer. Spend less time in their energy and more time in environments that nurture your peace. And most importantly, Stop justifying their behavior. Stop making excuses like, "That's just how they are," or "They don't mean it like that." No, disrespect is disrespect, no matter how subtle. When I started limiting my exposure to toxic people, something shifted. I began to feel lighter. I had more clarity. I started hearing my own voice again instead of the noise of constant criticism or negativity. It's like tuning a radio from static to silence, and suddenly you can hear your own thoughts, your own desires, your own truth. Sometimes the most powerful form of self-respect is distance. You don't have to slam the door shut. You just slowly, intentionally start walking in a new direction. You choose to invest in relationships that make you feel seen, heard, and valued, not questioned, controlled, or diminished. Ask yourself this: who in your life leaves you feeling better after a conversation? And who leaves you questioning your worth? Then make a decision, right now, to start pouring your time and energy into what lifts you up. You are not a dumping ground for someone else's frustration. You are not obligated to keep toxic connections alive. You owe no one access to your peace. And once you realize that, your life begins to transform. 4. Respond with silence. Have you ever noticed how some people say things not to communicate, but to provoke? They don't want resolution. They want a reaction. They want to get under your skin, pull you into their storm, and make you lose your cool so they can feel powerful for a moment. That's not conversation, that's a trap. And the most powerful way to respond to a trap is with silence. See, there's a common belief that silence is weakness, that if you don't speak up, you're letting them win. But the truth is, silence, when intentional, is a display of unshakable strength. When someone disrespects you, insults you, or tries to provoke you, and you respond with stillness, with nothing but calm presence, you show them and yourself that you don't dance to their tune. You have mastered the art of restraint. You've learned to protect your peace over proving your point. In Stoicism, this principle is everywhere. The great emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." That means, when someone throws hate your way, you don't throw it back. You let it fall. You rise above it, not out of fear, but out of choice. Because when you stay quiet, you stay in control. I remember a time when someone tried to humiliate me in a room full of people. The old version of me would have jumped to defend myself, argued back, maybe even made it worse. But instead, I paused. I looked them in the eye. And I said nothing. Not out of fear, but out of power. And you could feel it. The entire room shifted. The silence was louder than any words I could have spoken. Why is silence so powerful? Because it forces people to sit with their own words. It makes them confront the weight of what they've said, without you carrying it for them. It unsettles them because they were expecting chaos, and you gave them calm. They were expecting resistance, and you gave them stillness. That's what Stoicism teaches us, to become a wall against the storm. Not because we're emotionless, but because we choose what deserves our energy. Silence also gives you time to think, to reflect, to respond later if you choose. Not every rude comment needs a comeback. Not every insult deserves your energy. In fact, when you respond to disrespect with silence, you're communicating something deeper. I know my worth, and I won't waste it trying to convince you. Ask yourself, how often have you let someone else's words pull you into a spiral of overthinking, defending, or over-explaining? What if you stopped giving away that power? What if the next time someone tried to bring you down, you simply said nothing? Let them wonder. Let them sit with it. Let them realize they no longer have access to the emotional version of you that used to react to everything. That version evolved. That version grew stronger. That version learned that peace is louder than rage. When you learn to respond with silence, you become untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you're in complete control. And in a world that constantly demands your attention and reaction, choosing silence is a bold, revolutionary act of self-respect. 5. Don't take it personally. Here's something that can feel impossible when you're being disrespected. Not taking it personally. When someone belittles you, ignores you, talks down to you, or treats you like your worth is disposable, it feels personal, doesn't it? Like they're targeting something deep within you. Like their words are aimed straight at your identity. But what if I told you that 99% of the time it has nothing to do with you? People project, or constantly. Their pain, their insecurities, their inner chaos, it spills out onto whoever's closest, and if you're calm, kind, or stable, you become an easy target. Their disrespect isn't a reflection of who you are, it's a mirror of who they are. But if you don't understand that, you'll carry their projections like they're your truth. You'll absorb their anger, wear their insults like their tattoos, and start believing the lies they tell about you. The Stoics had a powerful antidote to this. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." That means that someone else's behavior doesn't become personal until you let it inside. You get to decide what enters your mind, your heart, your identity. You get to say, "That's not mine to carry." I've been on the receiving end of harsh words, passive-aggressive comments, and cold silence that said more than 1,000 insults ever could. And for a long time I thought it meant something was wrong with me. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I had to work harder to be liked. Maybe if I just did more, said less, smiled more, shrank myself, they'd treat me better. But then I realized the problem wasn't me. It was them. They were speaking from their wounds, not from truth. They were reacting to their inner storms, and I just happened to be in the blast zone. Once I understood that, something in me shifted. I stopped internalizing their behavior. I stopped bleeding from wounds that weren't mine. I started seeing their disrespect not as a dagger, but as a cry for help. And that's when I found peace. So, how do you stop taking it personally? You pause. You remind yourself, this is a reflection of their story, not my worth. You visualize a shield, your inner strength, and you let their words bounce off it. You choose detachment, not because you're cold, but because your self-worth is no longer tied to their opinion. Ask yourself, how many sleepless nights have you spent replaying someone's words? How many times have you allowed a moment of disrespect to define your entire mood, your confidence, your day? Now imagine if you could hear the same words and simply think, that's about them, and move on. Imagine the freedom of not making their pain your prison. Detachment isn't apathy, it's wisdom. It's saying, I see you, I see your behavior, but I will not absorb your chaos. I choose peace over pain. I choose clarity over confusion. I choose me. When you stop taking things personally, you don't just protect your energy, you reclaim your identity. You remember that your worth is not up for debate. You were whole before they spoke, and you'll be whole long after they're gone. 6. Walk away when necessary. There comes a moment, a quiet, powerful moment, when you realize something life-changing. You don't have to stay. You don't have to keep explaining yourself. You don't have to endure the same cycle of disrespect, hoping one day they'll change. You don't have to be the bigger person every time. You don't even have to wait for closure. You can simply walk away. And in that moment, you don't lose power. You take it all back. We've been conditioned to believe that walking away is weakness, that staying in a toxic situation somehow proves our strength or loyalty. But here's the truth. The real weakness is abandoning yourself just to stay connected to someone who doesn't see your worth. The real betrayal is staying silent while your soul screams for freedom. I've done it. I've stayed in relationships, friendships, jobs, family dynamics, where I kept shrinking myself just to avoid conflict, where I walked on eggshells and called it harmony, where I tolerated disrespect and labeled it patience. But over time, I realized that every moment I stayed where I wasn't valued, I was teaching myself that I didn't matter. And nothing is more painful than looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person you've become, all because you didn't want to walk away. The Stoics were clear about this. Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus has the power to break my freedom of choice. You are always free to choose what you will and will not accept in your life. That includes disrespect. That includes emotional manipulation. That includes any situation that robs you of your peace." Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you finally cared about yourself more. It doesn't mean you gave up. It means you woke up. And it's not always a dramatic exit. Sometimes it's a quiet unfollow, a skipped invitation, a calm conversation where you say, "This no longer feels healthy for me." Sometimes walking away is internal. You emotionally detach long before you physically leave. But no matter what it looks like, walking away is one of the most powerful boundaries you can ever set. So ask yourself, what are you still holding on to that's holding you back? Who are you still fighting to prove yourself to, when you already know they're not willing to see you clearly? Where are you enduring what you could be escaping? Remember, you don't need their apology to heal. You don't need permission to leave. You don't need to explain your peace to people who've never respected your pain. The world will not collapse if you walk away. But your spirit might if you don't. Leaving isn't the end. It's the beginning of reclaiming your voice, your energy, your dignity. And yes, it might hurt. It might feel lonely at first. But freedom always feels strange when you've lived too long in captivity. You don't owe anyone your suffering. You owe yourself peace. So, when necessary, walk away with your head high, your heart intact, and your soul finally breathing free. 7. Surround yourself with supportive people. Let's be honest, life is already hard. The challenges, the uncertainties, the moments when you question your path. Now imagine going through all that while surrounded by people who doubt you, diminish you, or just don't care. It's no wonder so many of us feel burnt out. Not from life itself, but from the emotional weight of carrying relationships that offer nothing but resistance and disrespect. But here's something Stoicism teaches us, and it's one of the most liberating truths you'll ever hear. You are not obligated to keep people in your life just because they've always been there. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to choose better. And you are allowed, no, encouraged, to build a tribe that lifts you rather than drains you. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual." In other words, the people around you aren't just a reflection of your past. They are shaping your future. And if the people closest to you are constantly pulling you back into drama, into small thinking, into cycles of disrespect, you're fighting a war on two fronts, one with the world and one with your own circle. I used to think I could do it all alone, that I didn't need support, that strength meant walking through fire by myself. But I was wrong. Real strength is knowing when to reach out. Real growth is surrounding yourself with people who challenge you with love, who hold you accountable with kindness, who see your potential even when you forget it. Supportive people aren't just cheerleaders, they're mirrors. They reflect the best parts of you. They remind you who you are when life tries to make you forget. They won't let you settle for less because they know what you're capable of. And when disrespect shows up at your door again, they're the ones who remind you you don't have to let this in. So how do you find these people? First, by becoming one yourself. Be the person who uplifts, who listens, who respects. Your energy will attract what you put out. Second, by being brutally honest about your current circle. Ask yourself, who truly supports me? Not just when I'm winning, but when I'm struggling. Who respects my boundaries, my growth, my silence? And who only shows up to take, criticize, or compete? It might mean making hard choices, letting go of childhood friendships that no longer align, stepping back from family members who constantly undermine you, saying goodbye to relationships that once made you feel seen, but now make you feel small. But once you clear the space, something beautiful happens. The right people begin to enter. And these aren't perfect people, but they are aligned. They value growth. They speak with kindness. They hold space for your pain, and most of all, they remind you that you deserve respect simply because you exist. You are not meant to fight every battle alone. You are not meant to prove your worth to people who don't even understand your value. Build your support system with intention. Because when you surround yourself with people who uplift and empower you, the noise of disrespect starts to fade, and you begin to rise, not out of fear or anger, but out of love. Love for yourself, love for those who show up, and love for the life you are, finally, fully choosing. 8. Own your worth, command your space. Let's pause and take this in. You've made it this far because something inside you refused to stay silent. Something inside you is tired of being disrespected, dismissed, or treated like your voice doesn't matter. And that something, that quiet fire inside of you, is your worth. It's always been there. Maybe it's been buried under years of toxic relationships, bad experiences, or your own self-doubt. But now? Now you've started to remember. And that changes everything. You see, handling disrespect isn't just about clever responses or boundaries. It's about who you become in the face of it. Do you become bitter, or do you become better? Do you shrink, or do you rise? Do you let other people define your value, or do you step into the truth of who you really are? You now have the tools, the mindset, to walk into any room and know without question, I am enough. I am allowed to take up space. I deserve to be spoken to with respect, and I am no longer available for anything less. That's not arrogance, that's clarity. And don't get me wrong, disrespect will still show up. There will still be people who try to poke holes in your confidence, test your limits, or make you question your power. But the difference now is, you're not the same. You've seen the truth. You know how to set boundaries. You know how to remain calm in chaos. You know when to stay silent and when to speak. You know when to walk away. And you've realized you don't need anyone's permission to choose peace over pain. This is the heart of Stoicism. It's not about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming unshakable. Calm, not passive. Detached, not disconnected. Powerful, not loud. Stoicism teaches us that the only true control we have is over ourselves, our minds, our choices, our responses. And when you master that, no one can take your power away again. So here's what I want you to remember as you go forward. You are allowed to leave the table when respect is no longer being served. You are allowed to rewrite the rules of your relationships. You are allowed to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. And above all, you are allowed to choose yourself every single time. Because the way others treat you, that's on them. But the way you respond, that's on you. And that's where your strength lives. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't ask, why are they treating me this way? Ask instead, what am I willing to tolerate? What am I teaching people about how to treat me? Because the standards you set are the lessons they learn. You don't have to tolerate being made small. You don't have to stay quiet. And you don't have to keep giving to people who only know how to take. You are not a doormat. You are not invisible. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to be respected. And it starts today, with one boundary, one decision, one moment of courage. You have everything you need. The rest is practice. So take a breath, stand tall, and go be the version of yourself that no one can disrespect again. You are not here to be small. You are here to stand tall, to walk with purpose, and to live with unshakable self-respect. The world may not always offer you the kindness you deserve, but you can choose to give it to yourself every single day. If this message spoke to you, like, share, and subscribe to Deep Dive Stoic, where we explore timeless wisdom to help you master your mind and protect your peace. And before you go, check out one of the suggested videos on your screen. It might be the exact message you need next. Thank you for being a part of this journey and this community. We're honored to have you. Stay grounded, stay strong, stay stoic,